So just a bit of context, I'm Maia and I live in Crystal Waters Eco Village, and I've done my PDC course, and I'm also learning how to be a permaculture teacher with my mum, Morag. And yeah, so that's me. So today on this festival, we have David Holmgren, Brenna Quinlan and Charlie McGee. So David Holmgren, for those who might not know, is the co-originator of permaculture, and he's a global leading ecological thinker today and author of many books, the latest being Retro Suburbia, The Downshifter's Guide to a Resilient Future. And yeah, he promotes a sustainable, resilient and self-organized culture through permaculture. And yeah, he's really, really cool. So just give us a wave. Yeah, and that's the book Retro Suburbia. So Brenna in the middle, she's an illustrator and educator, and she lives at Melliodora, which they're all at the moment. So yeah, just a bit of background. Melliodora is a permaculture demonstration site in central Victoria in Australia, and they grow food, milk goats, build the soil up and create a resilient community around that. And yeah, and so she's with David and Charlie there, and yeah, she's made these amazing illustrations and cards. And also on the video that you just watched, she illustrated all of that. And she also illustrated, so she illustrated Retro Suburbia and Milkwood as well, for those who've seen that book. Charlie on the end, he's the lead singer of Formidable Vegetable Sound System. And yeah, they were the first band to turn down the show at the Glastonbury, which is like the largest festival, due to ecological impact of flying over and stuff. But they did play when it went online due to COVID. Yeah. And so, yeah, they've been praised by the UN for singing about the important issues of our time. And he does permaculture activism through music with amazing lyrics. And yeah, over the last 10 years, they've played all around the world and become a favourite in Australia. And yeah, they've played alongside Ed Sheeran, Katy Perry, and Tame Impala. So yeah.
Welcome.
Hi. Hey, everybody.
It's great to be here.
So today I had a few questions for you guys. So I'm just going to ask David a few questions first. So I'm really interested about what was your seed of inspiration for permaculture? Like, you weren't much older than us when you started to do permaculture. And did you ever imagine it would become such an amazing global movement? And also, where would you like to see it go from here? And also, can you share a thing or two, a bit of advice for the young people of today?
Only all the answers to the important questions. Well, I'll try and be brief. I suppose there were various seeds for permaculture in my childhood to do with both environmental destruction and the abundance of nature, from food in the backyard, and a wild holiday property my parents had that was like a wild abandoned food forest gone wild, through to the destruction of the tadpole swamps where we kids used to range and forage, and having them all filled into for a rubbish tip in my childhood on the Swan River in Western Australia. So a lot of those things were childhood seeds, but of course in the 1970s, about the time I met Bill Mollison, there was a huge upwelling of interest in ecology and what we would call sustainability today. I don't think it was as big then as the movement now, but it was really big. And so that was a pivotal time, and a lot of things came together in those years when I met Bill Mollison when I was 19 years of age, which led to the publication of Permaculture 1 in 1978 when I was 23. And that sort of like caught that wave. It was like surfing. There was this huge wave of interest on it. Charlie's got the book off the shelf. It's out of print. We're hoping to bring it back as an ebook next year. Yeah, so a lot of those things were happening. There was a lot of things happening in the world at a larger scale. And then in a way that created the permaculture movement as a sort of a self-organising thing of mostly young people of my generation, taking it as a way they can create the world they want rather than just fighting against the world, the bad things in the world. So, of course, it's grown and spread and had ups and downs and, little centres and nests where it's very strong. Places like northern New South Wales and southern Queensland and a bit in central Victoria here, but also places all over the world. I suppose I never expected it to grow in that way, but I suppose as maybe a young idealistic revolutionary, I thought the whole world would change and the ideas in permaculture would become sort of normalised, whether they were called permaculture or not. And there's been a bit of that process has happened, but there's still a bit that these ideas are at the fringe, and again, with young people driving them often. And of course, for me, these two people next to me, they're sort of young folks, but maybe for you, they're sort of like all old farts already, like me.
In the middle.
In the middle. Maybe I should leave it there.
Thanks, David. Yeah, so Charlie, about like kind of the things you're doing on the fringe. So not really on the fringe, you're very favourite in Australia, but what inspires you to use your music to teach people about permaculture? And also, where do your lyrics come from? They're really funny and thought-provoking, and like, where do you find them in your brain?
Mostly.
Yeah. And so you're an ambassador for permaculture, and so where do you hope to see permaculture go?
Well, to answer your first question, I was inspired by permaculture when I was a kid, because my dad had this book lying around on his coffee table quite a lot. And I remember just picking it up and flipping through and being like, permaculture, what's that? And I got to pages like this where these amazing images of like duck ponds with fish and food forests and thought, wow, that's an interesting idea. Like I didn't really bother reading much, but I was just captured by the images of what the land could look like. And I was pretty lucky because I grew up on a sort of bush property where we had veggie gardens and chickens and a composting toilet and solar power back before anybody knew what those things were. And so for me, it was kind of like normal life. But, maybe some of you out there live in similar circumstances. But back when I was growing up, people didn't live like that. And I'm sure when David wrote the book, it was really far out. So you're absolutely right. Living on the fringe is where I've come from, and I love it. That's what my song "The Edge" is all about. So, when I got a bit older and I thought, wow, this permaculture stuff has something going for it. I actually went out and did a PDC, the permaculture design course, and studied with Robin Francis, who's up in the Northern Rivers, New South Wales, and then was so inspired by what I read in the stuff that she gave us and David's other book, Principles and Pathways, that I thought, this has to get out there somehow. Like, how can we make this fun for everyone, not just people who want to go and study and learn all about it? But yeah, David's book, Principles and Pathways, has all of the 12 permaculture principles in it, which are like little signposts for ways that we can make our lives more, not just sustainable, but regenerative, like leave the world better than we found it. And so I went through this book and I wrote a song for every chapter of the book. It's the nerdiest thing a musician has ever done, but kind of became my thing. So, and Moray was telling me that some of you guys, some of the perma youth around the world are starting to write permaculture songs, and that is what I want to see from the next gen. I started this project so that I could hopefully inspire other people to do the same thing, because songs and music is what has kept this culture we're here in Djadja Wurrung country, but, Indigenous culture all over Australia and all over the world have used music for millennia to sustain their culture. And so if we could start doing that, I reckon that's a great way to get permaculture, get the permanent into permaculture.
And then you can retire.
Exactly. I
the kids take over.
Maybe I can reflect there on when I first heard about these songs explaining the 12 permaculture principles, because they're really deep systems thinking, quite abstract in some ways. And I thought, popular songs trying to convey this. And when I heard these songs, I thought, this guy gets it completely. And I sort of thought, I wonder if he grew up a bit with this. And that was before I met Charlie.
Thank you. And Brenna, also, so your illustrations, they're such an inspiration for me, like as I mentioned before in Milkwood and Retro Suburbia. And how can you translate such big ideas like Charlie did with the music into clear and beautiful pictures that are so easy to understand? Like, how did you get into permaculture illustrations as well?
Thanks, Maia. It's a lovely question. I guess I've always thought about, translating complex ideas into more simple ones, whether it's through illustration or through other means of communication. Like, I really enjoy teaching because that's a different way of conveying complex information in an accessible way. I've always drawn since I was really little. Since before I could write, I could draw. I mean, we're all like that, but I just kept it up. And so when I started to learn about permaculture, I actually did my permaculture course in Chile in Spanish. I thought, wow, what an excellent package of ideas. It seemed to answer, for those of you who don't know much about permaculture, it kind of has all of the answers you've ever wanted in one place. I used to wonder, do we save the whales, or do we, help people who are less fortunate than us, or do we plant trees, or do we learn how to garden? And permaculture kind of is like this one-stop shop that encompasses everything. And for me, that just set off a million ideas in my brain of, oh my gosh, I could draw these things and bring these ideas to the world and to people who think more visually, make these ideas more accessible. So Dave's got an example here. So this is from Retro Suburbia, David's book. And this book, it's great that we've got it here actually. It represented the change from me being an artist. So I would always draw portraits and still lifes, and I was classically trained and I studied art in university and over in Italy as well when I was younger. And I just never thought of illustration as a thing. I'd lived in Argentina for quite a few years, and artists over there painted murals and didn't really work for money, but just kind of got by on their brilliance. And I thought, oh, okay, maybe that's my direction. I don't know. And when I came here and started interning with David as a volunteer, as a woofer, he was creating this book. And one day he asked if I would be willing to illustrate the book. And I thought, oh gosh, I'll have to Google what illustration actually means. I looked it up and I thought, okay, I can do that. It's sort of like art with a purpose, I guess. So I had a few goes and did some drafts, and Dave said they look great, and then ended up doing over 130 illustrations for Retro Suburbia. And by the end of this book, which is quite a large book, I knew a fair bit about illustrations.
And permaculture.
And a bit more about permaculture and about Dave. So, yeah, I guess to answer your question more concisely, it's just the way my brain works is if something's complex, my way of understanding it is to distill that into images. And I've found through doing that other people really resonate with that as well. And, most of us, more than 75% of people, their preferred learning style is visual. And we've seen through the internet now that because we're flooded with so much information every day, the more concise and efficient a message can be, the more effective it is, the more likely it is to go viral, the more likely it is to get out there. And so my way of doing that is creating images about permaculture.
Cool. So we have someone who communicates their ideas through words, through music, through pictures, and through Melliodora itself being a place that you can come and see. And so, yeah, it's absolutely amazing. I was wondering...
We've done all the hard work. We're trying to, like, cram it through a sort of sluicing machine to, like, make it go everywhere.
But these guys have got their hands in the dirt and they're and on the goat leads and, you know, the tools as well.
Yeah, we were nearly late today because we had to take the goats out to their paddock.
I was wondering, did you want to take us out to have a look or play us a song or something as well?
Yeah, well, which one?
Oh, I don't know.
Should we get requests?
Well,
Is there a special request?
I can do like a crash run around the outside of Melliodora here. I've got, okay, ready, switch to camera 2.
Yeah.
Check 1, 2. Hello, can you see me?
Which one is?
Hang on, I can't see you yet.
Here I am. Oh, okay, I'm just going to run outside. I'll be back, guys.
Okay.
Can you see me?
Yep. We see and hear you.
Oh, and then we've got a request for Dad starting afterwards. Okay, well, we'll work on that. So, quick tour of Melliodora, which is the home of David and Sue. And they built this place like over 30 years ago. I'm going to be really bad at this, Dave, so don't judge me. But this is the greenhouse. Now, this is where the garden begins, right? Because it's attached to the house, which, as you can see, is made out of really solid mud brick, and that's good thermal mass for keeping things warm in here. So we've got all of our plants. Well, Dave and Sue have their salad greens growing here, and we've got our little pumpkins and things coming up here just while it's all frosty outside, getting ready to go into the garden. But it's so nice and warm in here, even in the middle of winter. But as we head outside, where it's a lot chillier, we've got our garden beds ready to plant out. And so the gardens here kind of start at the back door. Bill Mollison always said, just start at your back door in permaculture. And that's literally what's happened in the greenhouse. So you don't even have to leave the house to get a feed. There's a salad growing in there. But then if you come up here, we've got some of the first garden beds. Now, these are under green manure. So they're not actually growing any crops, but they're preparing the soil to grow food in. A green manure is just sort of like a cover crop to keep the soil covered. And also, there's some really good plants in there that you can eat. And I'll just take you up past the beehives. We've got our bees are asleep today because it's so cold. And sorry about that, technical difficulties. So now I'm up on the hill just above the house, and you can see the house design is part of the permaculture design. And, you know, David's first book and some of his later books with Bill Mollison and beyond go into passive solar design, which in this climate is really important because we don't have as much heat as some of you people up in Queensland. And, you know, sunshine is very variable throughout the year. So this house is designed to catch as much sunshine as possible in the cold months and also to shade it in the hot months, because you know how the sun's angle changes? Well, here it comes in at a pretty low angle in winter, and when the sun comes in winter, it streams straight through those windows and hits the mud brick wall in the back, pretty much heating it up like a heater. And then in the daytime, that heat just, and in the nighttime, the heat just radiates outwards, and it's always so warm in the house, even in the middle of winter, without any other external heating, except for there's a wood fire to cook food on. But most of the time, it's just passively heated. And in summertime, because the sun is way up overhead, it doesn't shine through the windows, and so you get that shade, and it actually stays nice and cool. So it's a great design, and also with all the plants growing in the greenhouse, and over there's a grapevine. When that grapevine comes back, it provides a great shady arbor that, you know, keeps us cool in summertime. But in winter, when there's no leaves on it, you get the sun in. So the house is a really cool part of the permaculture design. And something that I learned when I did my permaculture course was that it's not all about gardening. It's about design. It's about creating solutions. And that can be for building, for growing your food, or for education and things like art and music. So this is just a little bit of, and actually, I'll just show you. This is my favourite bit of any permaculture design. So around here, nothing goes to waste. And this is a classic pan dunny system, which is just a bucket and some sawdust. And that goes out when it's all, full and ready to go onto the compost. And we use the compost mainly, the human manure compost is mainly for fruit trees or fruiting plants. You don't want to necessarily put it on your greens just in case, just to keep it sanitized. But by the time this is broken down, it's completely safe for use. And the reason for that is that compost gets so hot. So it's about 2 degrees outside at the moment. But I'm putting my hand in here. Don't worry, there's no fresh poo in there. And it is warm. It's about 60 degrees. So it's actually hot. And that's because all the bacteria, the heat doesn't come from the sun. The heat comes from all the bacteria eating the nutrients in the compost. And I've got some friends out in WA who actually built a compost-powered shower. So they made a compost heap. They put some rings of hose through it and ran water through. And as the water goes through, the heat from the compost actually heats the water, and then they run it into a shower. How cool is that? Anyway, just going to show you a little few things. Back to the cookies. Don't worry, guys, I'm coming back in. Where's Dazzle? Dazzle? Oh, she's in the toilet. Look out. The chook is going to the toilet. This is our friend Dazzle. She's a retired chook because she's blind. She can't actually see me. Can you, Dazzle? But she's very friendly, and we have to feed her and tap the bowl so she can hear it. But she's our chicken ambassador and our liaison in the garden. We can let her in the garden because she can't see anything to dig, so it's pretty safe. Oh, yeah, I found her. Brenna's come to join.
Dazzle is my favourite part.
Should we go back inside? Yeah, all right. Okay. I'll go in this way. So I'm walking past the Feijoa hedge. We've got some folks from New Zealand here. Feijoas. Nobody in this country knows what they are, but they're missing out because they are the best fruit ever. Isn't that right, Naomi? Yeah. They've finished up for this season, unfortunately, but...
Oh, g'day.
Oh, here we go. We've got a Mr. Homgren. Back to where we began.
Do you want a job doing tours?
I don't think I did it anywhere near as in-depth as you will, Dave. But actually, on that note, if you do want a comprehensive tour of Melliodora with someone who knows what they're talking about, is it next weekend?
Yeah, next weekend.
Yeah,
we're going to do the first online tour.
We're having an online tour with David going for 4 hours or 5 hours. So you can check that out on their website. But back to camera one. How do we go?
This complex tech juggle, I can't believe these people, what they can do.
We're digital natives. No, I'm not.
Multi people.
Can you see us back on camera one?
We can.
Yeah.
Brilliant. All right. So I'll play a song and then get out of your hair. But we have some requests coming through. Let me just see. Everybody's crazy. Plastic. Dad's Dunny. Oh, geez, there's a few.
When you went out to Dad's Dunny.
I went out to Dunny and got Yield. Everybody's crazy. Plastic. Break it down. Plastic. Dad's Dunny. Kimchi. Dad's Dunny. Looks like Dad's Dunny wins. All right, folks. Thanks for your requests. And it's so good to see so many of you here. This is amazing. I mean, in the times where we can't all get together in person, it's incredible to see you all gathering here from all over the world. Yeah, I'll play you a little song. I'm just going to make sure that the sound is going to do its thing. Where are we? Audio processing. Enable original sound. Here we are. Okay. So, this is a song about my dad's composting toilet. And that's why I'm a bit obsessed with composting dunnies, because I grew up with one. But they really are the best starting point for building your soil. My dad's dunny doesn't flush. My dad's dunny doesn't flush. My dad's dunny, well, you might think it's funny, but my dad's dunny doesn't flush. My dad's dunny's full of dirt, but it's never activated smelly red alert. Don't worry about the germs, 'cause they're eaten by the worms. Yeah, 'cause my dad's dunny's full of dirt. Yeah, 'cause my dad's dunny doesn't flush. My dad's dunny doesn't flush. Well, my dad's dunny now, you might think it's funny, but my dad's dunny doesn't flush. Good on you, Chanel, we're using a composting dunny. Fantastic. How many others out there have composting dunnies or have used a composting dunny before? Yeah. Well, my dad's dunny grows fruit trees. It's true. Breaking down your business so there's no chance of disease. It's safer and it's clean to turn brown into green. That's why my dad's dunny grows fruit trees. You have two. Ooh. Well, my dad's dunny doesn't flush. Yeah, my dad's dunny doesn't flush. Now my dad's dunny, well, you might think it's funny, but my dad's dunny doesn't flush. Now he never needs a plumber, 'cause the dunny's never blocked. Fertilizer for the garden, well, the pile is always stocked. Just chuck some sawdust on your number ones and number twos, and sit back and admire all the water you don't use, 'cause my dad's dunny doesn't flush. That's right, my dad's dunny doesn't flush. No, my dad's dunny now, you might think it's funny, but my dad's dunny doesn't flush. I said my dad's dunny doesn't flush. No, my dad's dunny doesn't flush. Oi, oi. There you go. Thanks, David. We've got Dazzle the Chook coming in.
Oh, thank you so much. Hey, I wonder whether have you got time to open up to see if anyone's got any questions for you, the three of you? Is that okay?
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
do you want to put them in the chat? Does anybody want to ask us a question down in the chat and we can just answer?
Yeah, so not breakout rooms yet, but I reckon, if you've got any questions, put it in the chat, and then Charlie and Dave and Brenna can read them there and respond. That's probably the easiest way.
Groovy. Luke and Christy, and we got Dazzle. You can ask Dazzle a question too if you want.
She's feeling left out.
Here we go. Are you going to write a song about basil? Do you mean dazzle or basil? We're currently growing basil.
You could use both in a rhyming song.
I've already got a song about an Isa Brown called Arabella, but you could easily apply that to dazzle.
She's a rescue chook too, so yeah.
She is.
Kind of is. We'll change
How
the
old
lyrics.
is Dazzle? I don't know. What do you reckon?
We got her from a local ethical egg company, but they get rid of their chooks once they stop being as productive. But probably 2.
2 years old?
I'm looking at Sue for confirmation. But the other chooks decided they didn't like her one day, so that's why she got to retire.
She got bashed up. Oh, here's one for you, David. How do you organise people's jobs on the farm?
Well, it's a lot of multitasking and flexibly doing things. So most of us can stand in for each other in some of the things, but it also, I suppose, started off with a bit of your department, my department between Sue, because she was the animal person and managed the house, and I was the plant person and the tech builder, Mr. Fix-It man. And so that meant that, we both helped in the other domain, but there was someone who was sort of boss in that area. And gradually, a bit that sort of pattern happens here. And so, like, I've been the, if you like, the head gardener for 35 years, but in terms of the veggie garden, increasingly Brenna is actually the head gardener in that department, and definitely raising all the seedlings and all of that. You saw in the greenhouse all of those plants started off, which is a really important part of, in a cold climate, getting all the baby plants going for the seasonal garden. And timing's really important. So, and she's also a really organised person, so the seed collection and all that stuff and writing labels on things, that sort of thinking really helps. So, increasingly, there's different people fit into, different areas, but we also have a bit of a walk around each week to sort of work out what needs to be done. And it's an evolving thing, depending on who's here.
Hannah's asked how we can get more youth involved with permayouth and permaculture in general. You got any ideas about that?
I think we're all here because we believe it's so important to make the world a better place. And it's important to recognise that no one person is going to save the world. You don't have to carry the weight of that expectation on your shoulders. All we have to do is be part of a movement. And so we're all in this together. The people who are doing all their little things all over the world are batting for the same team as us. And so do what makes you come alive. If you like chooks, hang out with chooks. If you like playing songs or writing, you can do that. If you like drawing pictures, figure out what it is, do that, and that will inspire other people.
That was one of the best quotes I ever heard, actually, when I was doing my permaculture course. Sometimes, at the start of a permaculture course, you get the session of like why we need to do permaculture, and some of that can be pretty overwhelming. It's like, oh my God, look at the world. And I had a moment where I was just like, stop the world, I want to get off, and I'm sure a lot of you have felt that at some point before. But as I was kind of tearing my hair out and despairing about, coal seam gas and deforestation and things like that, a friend came in and gave me a quote from Howard Thurman, which was just what Brenna said. It was, don't ask what the world needs, ask what can I do to come alive? Because what the world needs is people who've come alive. And I was like, wow, that sounds like a win-win, because I can do what I love and do something for the world as well.
And there's like the carrot or the stick, right? You can hit somebody with a stick and try to make them do something, or you can entice them with the carrot and say, come along and do what we're doing. So by having a really great time and, eating great food from the garden, or riding your bike to school or work because you really enjoy it, or doing what you love for a living or a hobby, these are the ways that other people will come on board. They'll see that your life is really excellent, and it feels good for you as well, and it's also making a positive difference. And we've seen that that's a really effective way of getting more and more people on board.
Thanks for the great question, Hannah. We go on from Eleni Kirkman. I hope I've said your name right, at Crystal Waters. Probably for Dave's, or maybe Brenna as well. But I heard about your dairy goats and wondering if you produce all their food and optional feed, and how do you protect trees against ringbarking? We're getting goats and wondering how you go with that side of things.
Yeah, well, I think the great thing about goats is they primarily eat shrubs and trees, which is a good thing and a bad thing. They don't just eat grass, and we have lots of trees, lots of shrubs, and all the plants that want to grow that everyone hates, like blackberry and gorse and Cape broom, which is a bit like lantana up in Queensland. And the goats help us with all of those things. So we grow the vast majority of the food, or the food grows itself here. So it's working from that abundance, and then we bring in small amounts of nutritional supplements, so when they're milking, they get a bit of breakfast. But apart from that, everything is basically grown here. But that does involve a lot of careful management, because clearly the goats can end up thinking that our most desirable fruit trees are the thing they just want to eat that day, or they get really annoyed and they eat the bark of the trees, both because they're annoyed but also because that has a lot of minerals in it that they need. So because we live in an environment where there's an abundance of trees, sometimes a little bit of damage, we can cope with that, but it is about management, and we use both tethering, training the goats to tether. We use electric fences, which is really animal training system. You know, they're pathetic little fences. They could easily sort of hop over them if they want to. And also just a lot of love and attention. Brenna and especially Sue spends a lot of time out with the goats, and so they are the devil, but they're also wonderful. That's fair enough.
That's great.
Yeah. We've also been asked, do you have any tips for goat enrichment? Someone has a young goat, it's very energetic and requires more than just a paddock to bounce around it. We're about to have baby goats soon, aren't we?
Yeah.
Volunteers are great. They play with goats. Goats play with volunteers. Everybody's happy.
Good idea.
There was a question, how do you get younger kids and adults learning simultaneously? So that's a particular interest of Charlie and mine. And I was like, oh, I should show a drawing of mine, and I just randomly grabbed one off the wall. I don't know if anyone knows this guy. Costa from Gardening Australia, everyone's best friend.
He's a master of doing kids and adults simultaneously.
Yeah.
He's an excellent communicator, and everyone from your grandma to your 2-year-old niece or nephew loves Costa. So it's definitely achievable. It's an exciting space to work in. We've actually been translating this book into a kids version, kids and young adults, but one that also really appeals to grown-ups. But it's got a lot more pictures and a lot less words, but the hard-hitting, important ideas are still in there. And we've also translated the ideas in this book into a more visual and sort of musical format. That's not actually the right one. We have a poster and card deck that translates David's principles into something that's more accessible to younger audiences. So taking what's already out there and kind of reframing it in a way that makes sense to you is an excellent way to do that. And also coming up with your own ideas, of course, which is why we live with Dave. We kind of complement each other on that front. That's Charlie. Oh, there's Costa again.
You can't get rid of him.
He's everywhere.
My favourite one.
Do we have time for any more, Maia and Morag, or how are we doing?
Maybe one last question. How about that?
Right.
Are there any there in the?
The person asking about seedlings, I think the best way to grow seedlings in your area is to ask a nursery or somebody who does seedlings in your area, because there are so many variables. I'm sorry, I can't give you a blanket statement on that one. What's the lucky last?
Where do we get the materials, i.e. the books and the cards? Well, Gabrielle, I'm glad you asked. You can, to get Retro Suburbia or Principles and Pathways, you can head to homgren.com.au. And Brenna and I are still trying to tackle some printing delays with our cards, but we're going to have them up pretty soon at Brenna's website, Brenna Quinlan.
Yeah, check our Facebook and Instagram, you'll see.
And Formidable Vegetable. So yeah, we'll keep you posted. Formidable Vegetable on YouTube for all the fun videos. Yeah.
And I'll make sure that when the recording of this goes out as well, that I'll have all the links to all of those things too. And is the tour, David, also on your website? Your virtual tour?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Yeah.
Yep.
Oh,
and
yeah.
470.
That's a really good
Oh, yes. Please tell us about that.
Last thing. Our latest book that we've published, which is not by us, but another old fart of my generation, permaculture teacher Linda Woodrow. It's a fantastic sci-fi novel set in the near future and really gripping story. And it's like very challenging futures, but very empowering in showing how people cope and adapt and thrive in that situation. And I think a great read for young readers really seriously concerned about what's coming down the line and how to integrate that into a positive, empowering way. But it doesn't pull any punches, but through the journey of course, story. And as we've been talking about, art, music, story is incredibly important ways to communicate these important ideas.
Good book. We couldn't put it down.
Such a good book. Linda has actually written heaps of like non-fiction permaculture books. One of the first books I read about permaculture was by Linda, but this is such a good story. And for you up in sort of Queensland, northern New South Wales, it'll be extra like, whoa, because it's set in sort of Byron Bay area. For those of you overseas, that's the place where Fern Gully was filmed. Do you remember that movie?
No, they don't, because they're all under 35.
Oh, yeah, of course. Sorry. Anyone my age.
Old man reference. Jeez, Charlie McGee.
All right, whatever. Because it's like a permaculture thriller. It's like an adventure through the like, what do we do next kind of scenario. I won't give too much away, but yeah, check it out.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for being here and sharing that with us and inspiring us with everything that you've just been talking about. Maya's going to open up. Oh, Sue, hi.
In the house.
And don't forget your grannies. They'll help you with a lot of stuff.
Look out for this granny.